Welcome back to Let's Play Out of the Park Baseball. We are here in the 2035 season, and at the All-Star break, we are 51-45, which, quite frankly, it feels like we're always 51-45 at the All-Star break. We're here currently occupying the second wildcard spot. The first belongs to our division rival Houston Astros, and the Angels have a 10-game lead on us in the division. We do have some recent injury news. Damani Hairston has a strained hamstring that is a day-to-day injury that influences running. He will not have to go on the injured list, but as a result, we have put Chris Greer at first base. He will play the majority of first base for the next month, with Hairston taking over as the DH. Here is a quick look at your top players by WAR. Our top hitters by WAR are the outfield. It's Okoro, Tyndall, and Baker. Pitching-wise, it is Mike Drake, but that is F4, keep in mind. So even though the ratios and strikeouts, walks, and home runs are very good, it hasn't led to necessarily the greatest run prevention. A 4.64 ERA is bad by his standards. He's more of a 3 ERA guy, as you can kind of see from his 2033 and 2034 stats. Dave Luvano's been a nice surprise for us, a 3.46 ERA in 91 innings pitched, acquired from Cleveland, and I don't even think opened the season in the rotation, but he has been very, very good. Gage Jump is a guy we have in the rotation right now. Minor league signing, you can see that he has done well for us. Danny Bondanza has been great coming out of the bullpen this year. You can see he's an all-star right here, a 2035 all-star. And funnily enough, Min Hui Yu, who we traded for to become our closer to replace Jeff Grantland, has not been good this year. So he may lose his claim on that closer role, with Bondanza doing well and Yu struggling. Speaking of all-stars, here are your all-star rosters for 2035. It looks like Jonathan Ciotti, the great young ace of the New York Yankees, the reigning Cy Young winner, will make the start. We do have Bondanza as an all-star. Mason Miller's an all-star for the Yankees. He joined them this past season. You can see he's been great coming out of the pen for them so far. We have Chris Greer as an all-star. Although I wonder if that's more of a reputation thing. I mean, this isn't like a bad season by any means, but it's a little bit below his standards. You know, in 2034 and in 2032, like he was a lot better than he's been, at least in this first half of the season. And then Okoro is not an all-star, but I kind of thought he should be. I think I'd rather have Okoro be an all-star than Chris Greer, to be honest with you, although maybe some stiff competition in terms of the outfield ranks. The best player so far has definitely been Chester Gurton. We have complained about this guy many a time. Just the star first baseman for the Angels, pacing for 55 home runs, 213 OPS plus, 10 WAR season. That's the pace that he's on, a former MVP himself. Here's what it looks like in the National League. Ken Pepin, who we've mentioned a lot, will make the start for the Rockies. He is your starting pitcher for the National League. Jeff Grantland is an all-star. I'm trying to see if there's any other interesting names. Austin Riley, still an all-star at age 38 for the Braves. Michael Harris, still an all-star. Who's having like a monster season here? I guess like Ethan Salas, right? For the Padres, still on the Padres at age 29, having a fantastic year for them. Here are his career stats. Following the All-Star game and heading into the second half, Jeremy Shia is eligible to come off the injured list. We're not really in a rush to get him back into the rotation. He was so good for us in 2034, but so bad for us so far in 2035, and it's been the control. 31 walks in 172 innings versus 31 in 75. I think we are going to use this as an opportunity to give him a rehab assignment in the minors. And if he doesn't perform well there, we may just have to option him to AAA, because so far our rotation of Spector, Pitzer, Luvano, Jump, Drake is better. It's just, Shai has been the worst pitcher out of that bunch. It is now July 20th as we head into the second half of the season. Hopefully we can get a little bit hot here and give us some momentum going into the trade deadline. We do have some money available to us. We do have that ability to add some salary, not a ton of salary, but some salary, and we'll just be looking for rentals like we usually do to try to improve this team. We are here at the July 30th trade deadline. We did not get hot, but we still occupy one of the 3 wildcard spots, and it just looks like the wildcard race in general in the American League is a bit weaker than we've seen in years past, just based on the win distribution of the American League. You see mostly above 500 teams are in a good spot, and below 500 teams aren't a good spot. So we may just have to finish above 500 this year to clinch a playoff spot. We are currently 54-51, 14 games behind the Angels, so I would say they are out of reach. But we're going to look for deals to make this team better down the stretch, and hopefully heading into the playoffs as well. Looking at the team right now, I would say offense has been a weakness. We have the 11th best OPS, and we're 11th in runs scored in the American League, so adding a bat could be good. Yet at the same time, it sort of feels like our position player core is kind of solidified, like you wouldn't really know where to upgrade. Like Steve DeBona, right? He's really struggling, but I just want to keep giving him the chance. Like, I don't necessarily think I would bring in a shortstop, over his head. I just want to see him, do better and get better down the stretch. Jared Forrest at catcher, yeah, he hasn't been that great, but he's part of the core, so it's kind of tricky. The one thing would be maybe bringing in a bat to take over for Damani Hairston, but it's not like he's been terrible either, and I don't know. So I think lineup will be a tough thing to upgrade if we try to do it. One thing I could definitely see us doing is trying to consolidate some of this starting pitching talent, because we have these 5 and they're fine, and Quackenbush is fine, and Jeremy Shai is fine. So maybe trading we have Pete Barker as well. So maybe trading 2 of those guys for a more frontline guy down the stretch could be a good move as we just try to consolidate some of this starting pitching depth into, higher tier talent. And then bullpen could use some work. It's particularly just the middle of the bullpen. Salcedo's been really bad this year. Ken Southard hasn't been great this year either. If we could find replacements for those guys, I think it could maybe help. Yu has struggled this year as well, although it's not like he would, get replaced by any means. So bullpen could use some help, but we'll just have to see. I'm open to entertain all types of offers this trade deadline. It's just a matter of what we can come up with to make this team better, both in the short term and the long term. This is going to be a big trade deadline, and it's not just going to be rentals. It's going to be a deadline that really shapes our long-term future as well. We do have some rentals here from the Washington Nationals, who's the first team we're going to trade with. Luke Little is in the final year of a very expensive contract where he was earning $25 million to be a reliever, basically, which is just absolutely insane. I know he has 80 grade fastball, 80 grade slider, but still, that is insane. I think one reason why we're going to do so well in this trade is because he has a partial no trade clause or whatever, and we are one of the teams that he would consider moving to. So keep in mind here with this trade, we do have the Nationals covering all the money. The money does not change at all in this deal because Jacob Misrowski is also in this deal. He has 1 more year left in arbitration. Again, would probably just trade or non-tender him because I'm not looking to trade him, spend $7.5 million on a reliever pretty much ever. So, again, this is basically a rental for us. It's a guy we're going to turn around and trade later, but will pitch out of the bullpen for us. These guys don't really necessarily fit what I like in a reliever. I wish the control wasn't so fringy. The stuff is obviously insane on both of them, but it's not really what I'd go for just given the defense on this team. But the defense on this team is going to get a little worse. And one reason for that is we're going to get Prince Ardley in this deal. Prince Ardley was an all-star in 2034. And has just generally hit. He's hit in the big leagues. You can see his career big league stats right here. He's a 132 OPS plus hitter. He is still, early enough in his service time that he would make the league minimum next year. Or excuse me, I don't know that. He could be Super 2. No, he would still probably make the league minimum, it appears. And so when you look at his ratings, with the 50 avoid case, the 60 power, and the 50 eye, what he really is a more balanced version offensively of Damani Hairston. It's going to be less strikeouts, maybe less pop, maybe less home runs, but just a more balanced approach. And I would honestly prefer that. I don't necessarily want Hairston as Cuvée light. I like someone like Prince Ardley, who is just a pretty balanced hitter overall. So we're going to go ahead and make this trade. And the only guy we're giving up is Jamie Bennett, who stinks. So it's pretty much just for free. I know, it's kind of a crazy deal. Nick Krall, our assistant GM, says it's a major win, and I agree. Our next trade will be with the rebuilding Seattle Mariners. We're going to trade for Isdel Medina, who is a very good pitcher for them. He's never been an all-star, which is kind of curious, but you can see he has a career 3.81 ERA in 1,000 innings, 20 WAR player throughout his career. And this year is a good indicator of where he's kind of been at because the ratios and the strikeouts and the walks and the home runs are great, but the run prevention just hasn't quite been there. It's it's an average ERA. You can see in years past, he's more of a mid-threes ERA. A lot of volume potentially coming from this guy. We like the 60 home run allowed. We like the 60 control. We like the injury history or lack thereof. I mean, worst injury he's ever had was a 2-week injury that was day-to-day. So this is a guy who, knock on wood, has stayed pretty healthy throughout his career. He's under a contract right now that includes a player option in 2038. And it's some serious money. At least if you're the Oakland A's, it's serious money. And we're going to ask Seattle to retain half of that cash as they are rebuilding. And they're going to get a pretty good return here, I think. Damani Hairston is going to go in this trade. We have Yardley now, so I don't really see a need for Hairston. Hairston did fine for us. I think we really gave him a shot somewhat. I mean, he made 200 plate appearances for us, and they were average-ish, but I'm happy with where we're at in terms of that trade we made with Washington. We're going to move on from Hairston. Quackenbush is injured for us. He is a partially torn labrum. He'll be back in a week. good ratings potential, could be a very good pitcher, could be a similar enough pitcher to Medina that it makes sense for the Mariners to make this trade. But I think Medina is, to me at least, clearly better. And Demario Fraga, an outfield prospect who we signed for, I think it was $2.6 million back in 2034. Good power potential, some good personality traits. Like this is a trade that I think makes kind of sense for a rebuilding club to make and for a buying club like us to make. The only tricky thing is by taking on this cash with Medina, it's going to really sort of throw the budget into a long-term sort of turmoil, and we may have to end up trading someone we really like just because they're earning a lot of money. So we'll have to see about that, but we're going to go through this trade, and we're going to add Isdel Medina to our rotation, both in the short term and also the long term. And this is really the biggest trade. It's going to be with the Tampa Bay Rays, and it's going to really reshape what we do in our infield in particular. We're going to acquire two great players. Jim Evans is a two-time All-Star for the Tampa Bay Rays. He's 26 years old. He plays first base for them. He'll probably play third base for us, at least for now. We'll see. We may have to shift some things around to make everything work, but he could very well be third base for now for us. You can see the hitting stats, and I want to go ahead and set the comparison here because I really think if you just look at the hitting ratings for him, he compares to Greer pretty similarly. These guys are just really balanced. There's not really a weakness to their offensive game. It's just, Evans at least has some ability to play third base, which, Greer doesn't really have. Greer can play first base or DH, and that's it. And then we've talked about this guy before, Ayasi Hesters, a great player, someone capable of playing all over the infield. Somehow also we're going to trade for him in this deal, and you can see the type of player that he's been throughout his career, a very good one at that. I picture him second base for us, but then maybe third base long term. Like what's probably going to happen is we'll probably have to trade one of these guys, I'm guessing, just because they're going to hit those RBers, and we're trying to keep the churn going. Yeah, these are just awesome players that we're getting, and of course you have to give up something to get awesome players, but it's really not as much as you might think because Cam Collier, his deal expiring at the end of this year. Anyways, Albert Ramirez has not really been good for us at all whatsoever. Jeremy Shia, really good for us last year. Not so good for us this year. Could still very well be good for Tampa. I get that. He's got lots of years of control left. And then David Ramirez is the guy I'm sad to see go. This guy is dominating rookie ball right now. He's 18 years old. He also dominated rookie ball last year, at least in terms of the ERA. And if you look at the OSA, I mean, he looks very advanced on the OSA, and maybe our scout's just dumb. I mean, just what he's doing statistically at this level, even though it's rookie ball, seems to indicate that he is more advanced than my scout thinks. So I'll be sad to see him go because I think he could very well be an awesome reliever, high adaptability, high work ethic. But he's got 2 pitches and 30 stamina, so he is a reliever, and that's kind of what I tend to do. I tend to sign a nice relief prospect on the international market. For him, it was 2034, and then I trade him because I'm like, they're relievers. And when you're getting guys like Jim Evans and Hesters, I think it just makes sense. We're going to go ahead and make this deal and really reshape our team. And now for the task of making them all fit, we're going to start by waiving and DFAing Tim Salcedo. He's someone who we acquired in a trade with Washington back in 2030, a career 3.95 ERA for us, just a perfectly usable reliever, but he's been really bad for us this year, and he's in those RBs, so he's going to get waived and DFA'd, and he was probably going to be non-tendered at the end of the year anyway. I also went ahead and sent Ken Southard back to AAA. He's in his last option year. And another player with an option left is Pete Barker, and we're going to use it on him. Guy had a really good run for us, particularly in 2033. Hasn't really been all that great since. I'm okay with using the option here. He's already ARB eligible because he's eclipsed 3 years of service time, so he's another guy who probably gets non-tendered at the end of the year anyways, but we're going to demote him to AAA. So here's how the team will set up heading into August. I think it's probably the best lineup we've ever put together in this save. It's just a question of, is the defense good enough to help out the pitching and make this a good team? Here's how we're going to line up. The only real change here in these lineups between left-hand and right-hand pitching is that basically Hungo and DeBona become a platoon now at shortstop. DeBona, I know it's funny to see him be like a platoon bat, but he's just kind of struggled in his early goings in the majors here. He's definitely the long-term shortstop of the future. There's no doubts about that. It's just going to be, when we get to the offseason, we're probably going to trade one of Hungo or Hesters or Evans or Ardley. One of those guys will get traded, and that's okay. We're just trying to get the best offense on the field we can now. And that offense is going to be led off by Brendan Tindall, followed by Chris Greer, Chris Baker, Jim Evans cleanup. Hesters at second base will bat fifth, Ardley sixth, Okoro seventh. Again, at shortstop, the Hungo DeBona platoon and Jared Forrest ninth. You look at some of just the stats of these guys in this lineup. This is the best lineup we have put together. The pitching will look like this, and we're actually going to go for a six-man rotation for now because Gage Jump has looked so good since he came up for us coming off that minor league signing this past offseason, a 2 ERA in 39 innings. Some bullpen appearances, some games started, but we're going to have him start for us, and it's going to be a six-man rotation because I wouldn't want to put Luvano, Spector, Medina, Pitzer, or Drake in the bullpen to begin with. That bullpen is going to have Nate Britton in long relief, followed by Braden Jennings, who could also be a long reliever, but a middle reliever. Little and Mizorowski are going to become middle relievers for us, also going to be specialists versus right-handed hitting and left-handed hitting, respectively. And the stoppers remain the same. It's you in that seventh inning role, it's Watts in that eighth inning role, and it's Baudanza in that ninth inning closer role. It was not a great July for us. We ended up going 11-14, and we are currently on a 5-game losing streak heading into August. But August also means it's time for a prospect check-in. So here is your prospect check-in for August. First little note here, Daniel Ramos is injured. He's pending with a leg injury. This is a guy we gave all our money to last winter, or that $5.7 million to sign him. Obviously, he's a great prospect. He's the number 31 ranked prospect according to the game. And his debut at the age of 17 in rookie ball had been pretty good so far, so we hope that's not a major long-term injury that would derail his development in any sort of meaningful way. Moving on here to Arizona, where it seems like we have the bulk of our prospects in Arizona right now. I don't want to look at Josh Nolan. Sorry, Josh Nolan. Shojiro Nakamura, who's the number 22 ranked prospect, doing all right. Not the type of performance that's going to say, hey, he's probably going to move up to full season A ball next year, but a perfectly fine performance in Arizona for him. I do want to find Alejandro Ambriz because I am getting excited about him. He's the number 17th ranked prospect according to the game, and he's right on the border of being ready to move up to full season A-ball, but I think we'll leave him in Arizona for the rest of the season. This guy's done nothing but perform at the minor league level, though. Although he has been a minor leaguer for quite a long time, we may have to run to a situation where we have to add him to the 40-man well before he's actually big league ready. I could definitely see that happening. Moving on here to full season A-ball, you'll see some of our new draftees, particularly in high A, where we have Jake Clark and Bobby Baker now. Those were our, first round picks, Jake Clark being the comp pick. Sincere Cabbage Stalk has also just moved up to high A after a good outing in A so far this year. And who else do we have in high A? Eric Finch is another guy who I'm starting to get excited about. He was our 2032 fourth rounder, and he performed admirably in A, and he gets the promotion to high A going into August. In Double A, when they have a couple prospects, it's Mike Delfasi and Juan Bustillos. Bustillos, he's the number 14th ranked prospect. I think he's our highest ranked prospect. And yet, when I look at these ratings, I'm just so underwhelmed, So I don't really know what to do with him. He may just be like awesome trade bait going into the offseason. We'll just have to see. But he's 23. He doesn't have a single rating that's up to a 50 yet. And the main thing that makes him good is really high BABIP because he's a line drive hitter. Like, it's just weird. He's a kind of a weird player. He's performed fine wherever he goes, but I just don't know. I'm not seeing it. I may have our scout rescout him and see if his opinion changes. But actually, the guy I'm excited about in terms of outfielders in our system is Ian Kammeier, who is hot right now and has been an above-average hitter in AAA. And I think with us just taking on salaries, particularly with the Medina trade, particularly with the Pitzer signing, I hate to say it, but it's very possible that we trade Chris Baker this offseason and Kammeier becomes the center fielder for us. Because right now we have up to $131 million committed to 2036. Obviously, that's not all going to happen. We're not going to trade, Jacob Misiorowski's ARB salary. We'll non-tender him or trade him if need be. But to get under that $100 million, we're going to have to probably trade Chris Baker. I hate to say it. Or it's going to be one of the, outfielders that are ARB eligible. I don't know, but it's a tricky spot to be in. The hope is that we just win the World Series this year, right? But we're currently 54 and 53. And just on the edge of that third wild card spot heading into August. But it's just been a really bad stretch for us. We've now lost 7 in a row. We are 54 and 55. We have not won a game since the trade deadline, even though we felt like we really added some talent. And I think what's maybe happening here is, there's kind of an adaptability element, and sometimes players come over and changes happen in their careers, and it's just kind of hard to adjust. I don't know if I can blame it on that. We've introduced a lot of new players to the team, and maybe it's taking some time to just gel, but we need to get our act together here because we need to make the playoffs. Simple as that. August 17th, I'm updating you all because Braden Jennings has an injury that is diagnosed as pending, but I'm also updating you all because things are getting pretty dire here. We're doing really badly. 58 and 63, now our record, 2.5 games out of a potential wild card spot. Looks like we're going to need to be about 500/above 500 to get there, and currently we are 5 games below 500. That is a huge bummer for us. We are definitely in trouble. The team has just not performed well. We've scored 523 runs this year and allowed 561. The pitching has really struggled coming off of this trade deadline. And you look at the rotation right here, those top 3 guys, Drake Pitzer, and, Medina hasn't pitched for us all year, but, in 3 starts, he has a 7 ERA. These ERAs are just way higher than we could expect them to be. The back end has actually done fine. Spector, Luvano, and Jump, those guys have been fine, but the front end rotation has really struggled. And we've had some offensive struggles coming off this trade deadline. The new faces, Evans, Hesters, and Ardley, collectively have not hit particularly well for us. And it's just a really rough spot. And I'm looking at, where we're at in the competitive cycle and everything like that. And, the fact of the matter is I'm not really achieving any of my goals if I, fail to make the playoffs. In fact, he wants us to reach the World Series this season. And, it could be my job on the line as GM/manager of the Oakland A's. So we really need to turn things around. We also do want to find out what's the deal with Braden Jennings, so we'll go ahead and sim forward. And it looks like he was fine. And we do win 2-1. And the news does not get any better as Chris Baker goes out with a torn groin injury here on August 20th. That is a 6-week injury, and with that timing, that most likely ends his regular season and possibly ends his Oakland A's career. He's just a week shy of turning 30. He's due, $36 million worth in team options over the next 2 years. That could very well be the end. And, you look at his 2034 and 2035, not as good as he was earlier in his career, but it's been a wonderful career. I'm not saying goodbye to him just yet, obviously, but this is a bummer. This most likely ends his regular season. We'll go ahead and put Doug Starr in the lineup in center. He's done a good job filling in this year with a 113 OPS plus and 378 on base percentage. And I've decided the best call-up for us is going to be Ian Kammeyer. I didn't necessarily want to start the clock on him, but he seems to be our best option, so we'll call him up. He'll make his big league debut, our 2033 fourth rounder. And I guess what I'll actually do is sort of platoon it, so I'll have Kammeyer start in center versus left-handed pitching, while Starr continues to start versus right-handed pitching. August 26th, we've got another injury, and this time it is to Hesters, who we just acquired at the trade deadline. And I have to wonder, are the Rays working some sort of magic on us? Did they scam us? Because look at these splits right here between what he did for them this year and what he's done for us in 22 games. It's a 3 to 4 week injury. He would still have a chance to return at the end of the regular season, but given that he is now on the injured list alongside Chris Baker, we will have to reshape the lineup once again. The call-up will be Mike Bencivengo back up from AAA. And we're going to allow Hungo to move over to second base, which allows Tabona to be the full-time shortstop yet again. And because Hungo still is not particularly good at facing left-handed pitchers, he has big splits, we'll have Mike Bencivengo play second base versus left-handed pitchers. We are here on September 1st now. That is the day of roster expansion, and we are simply running out of time with a record of 65 and 69, 3.5 games out of that third wildcard spot. We're probably going to have to go something like 18 and 10 for the rest of the year, and I don't know if we have that in us. This may be a very disappointing season for us indeed. I will call Salcedo back up. He'll rejoin the pitching staff in the bullpen. And then I'll also call up Jeff Boudreau. It is now September 6th, and yeah, it's just not happening this year, guys. We are now 65 and 74. We've lost the first 5 games of September. We've won 3 of our last 10, and we're 5.5 out of the wild card with less than a month to go in the season. My job is in big, big trouble. My job security. September 23rd here, we have managed to claw our way back to 500 at 77 and 77 with 8 games remaining in the season. We are still 3 behind that third wildcard spot. It's the Tigers at 80 and 74. They've kind of separated themselves, as well as the Twins, who are only a game behind them. So we are still 3 games off of that wildcard spot. And with a magic number of 8 for the Tigers with 8 games to go, I would say it's unlikely, but we'll just go ahead and sim through day by day. Maybe we can continue our winning ways. We're going to lose versus Texas. It's going to drop us down to 4 games behind. Magic number now 6. And then as we sim forward another day, we do get a win. But that magic number is now 4. So I just don't think we've got it. September 29th, Baker is ready to come off of the injured list. We will option back down Boudreaux and put Baker back in the lineup. As far as the standings go, we still have a slight chance still. We've got 3 games coming up against Houston, so let's assume we have to win all 3 of those games. We would leap past them in that case, and then we would need some combination of Minnesota faltering and Seattle faltering, as well as maybe some tiebreaker stuff, but first things first, we've got to sweep the Astros to even have a shot at this. Game 1 at Houston, simulating. We lose, and that'll do it. Athletics will not get a playoff berth this year. We are devastated. We do win the last 2 games versus Houston to finish with a record of 82 and 80. That allows us to play spoiler against Houston, at least, as the Twins will advance over them for that third AL wildcard spot. Here are your playoff teams right now. It looks like the Yankees won at the East, the Royals won the Central, and then the Tigers, Twins, and Red Sox grabbed wildcard spots. In the National League, the Mets won the East, the Pirates with 100 wins, best team in the league, the Diamondbacks won the West, and it's going to be Marlins, Braves, Cardinals in the playoffs. Cardinals advancing via tiebreaker over their division rival Reds for that third wildcard spot. I guess the question is, would we have even had that tiebreaker over Minnesota? Because if that's the case, then we would have advanced if we had that tiebreaker over them. And the answer, unfortunately, is yes. We went 4-3 versus the Twins this year, so if we had won that first game at Houston, we would have clinched at their expense. Instead, they go on to the playoffs because they held the tiebreaker over the Astros, who they were 5-1 against. It would have been pretty wild, too, because we had a negative 31 run differential. We scored 699 and allowed 730 this year. And if there's one thing I could really point at with regards to this team, where did we struggle the most? Definitely the front end of the rotation. The back end did their job. You look at Spector, Luvano, Gage Jump, all with ERAs under 4. That's what you want to see from your back end guys. You just need better from the front end guys. And Mike Drake at a 4.3, Pitzer at a 4.5. Isdel Medina had a 6 with us. It just didn't work this year. The front of the rotation did not work, and I think ultimately that was our Achilles heel. Looking at our offensive output this year, you would have thought we would have scored more runs. I mean, Jim Evans, who we acquired at the trade deadline, was brilliant. Had a 149 OPS plus 2 WAR down the stretch for us. Prince Ardley, same story, was also brilliant. So we're happy to have those guys, hopefully for the long-ish term. Brendan Tendall was great his first year with the team. 4 WAR season for him. Okoro had a nice year. If there's anyone who can point fingers at, Greer wasn't quite his usual self. You can see just kind of from his career, he's been more like 157, 154 OPS plus this year, a 129. And maybe this year just sort of exposed how reliant we were on him to generate so much of the offense that even when he has a good year, just not a great year, our offense seemed to really suffer. Baker has really sort of tailed off in terms of his career. You can see 1 WAR seasons back to back. He doesn't necessarily have the fielding chops to play an elite center field like he did kind of earlier in his career. If we look at his career fielding stats, you can see at times in his career, he was, let's find it. He was plus 14, plus 10 in center in 31 and 32, and he's been kind of negative since then. So he's someone I think we will most likely move on from this offseason, which is a bummer. It's a bummer to see his career come to an end in that way. At least in an Oakland A's uniform, he still has a lot more baseball left to play, I'm sure. If you look at the rest of the team, I think Hungo really fell off in the second half, and I have some sort of questions about him, even as that sort of platoon infielder situation. DeBona, on the other hand, came on a little bit in the second half and actually finished with positive WAR because he just could not hit anything his first, 40 games of the year. I think the role players did a solid job, like Doug Starr. This is fine for a 4th outfielder. Cam Meyer came up, made some starts. This was fine. 362 on base percentage. It was fine. Cam Meyer may be the future of center field, but we've re-scouted him, and he has 60 outfield range. That's certainly not ideal for that position. We'll have to see. Maybe we can find other ways to use him. But that's how the team went this year offensively. Let's check on the pitching. I guess we've already talked about the starters. Drake and Pitts are in particular were disappointments. Medina, who we traded for, who, is under a pretty big contract, was terrible for us as well. Although I do think he will do just fine next season. I'm not too worried about him. But the bullpen actually was pretty good this year. And that was interesting because Min Hui Yu, who we traded for to be our closer, was not good. He was just generally not good, a 4.84 ERA. He allowed 11 home runs in 57 innings. He just wasn't that great this year. You can see with Miami, he was very good and very much like closer material. And this year he was not. But Danny Bondanza, I thought, did a good job. He's not Jeff Grantland, but I thought he did a good job. Colt Watts was a nice surprise. His technique is basically don't allow any home runs. And, so even though the ratios and strikeouts and walks aren't that impressive, a 2.85 ERA is a 2.85 ERA. And then Mistrowski, who we trade for the trade deadline, also brilliant for us down the stretch, just had a brilliant year in general. And he does have one more year of arbitration with an estimate of $7.5 million. That's probably someone we still look to move on from with the 35 control. Middle relief wasn't great, but honestly, the stoppers did their jobs, and as a result, this was one of the better bullpens we've had. Before we sim through the playoffs, I will point out that pretty much our entire staff is under contract through 2035, so there's going to be just all new staff going into next year. This is the staff we've had ever since we got good, basically, ever since we started winning. They all got extensions around when we started winning that first year. I guess that was 2031 when we actually experienced some success, but they were all signed through 2035, so we'll be moving on from the majority of these people. Mike Holtz, our scouting director, and Paul Buchheit, our team trainer, will remain. What's left is to find out who wins the World Series. We'll have to go through and simulate these playoffs day by day, and it's going to be the Cardinals, Marlins, Royals, and Tigers advancing from those wild card series. None of them needing a Game 3 to do so, so now we're on to the respective division series. Looks like it's going to be the Angels taking a 2-0 lead. Tie series here. Diamondbacks and Pirates also up 2-0 in these best-of-5 series. Pirates advance, Diamondbacks advance in the National League. And then in the American League, Angels advance. We're going on to a Game 4 here between the Royals and the Yankees. And that'll be a Game 5. But I think a rest day in between. Yes, so let's see who wins that Game 5 between the Royals and the Yankees. It is the Yankees. Let's meet our final 4 teams. We are pretty familiar with the very stacked and very good Los Angeles Angels. They will be playing without their star shortstop, Jared Eggers, potentially. He has a day-to-day injury, a sprained wrist that has a moderate influence on his throwing and a minimal influence on his hitting. I don't know if he'll play through it, but he's a guy who's really good, but you can see 100 games, 82 games, does have a serious injury history. Steve Hill, their star outfielder, is here with a 140 OPS plus season, although honestly not nearly as good as the previous year. I think he was MVP last year. Yep, 2034. Chester Gurton also has himself an MVP award. I believe he was 2033, and probably is going to win it again this year. 59 home runs, 346 average, 1.158 OPS plus, perfect 10 WAR season. Is that a triple crown? Let's see, average. Yep, that's a triple crown for Chester Gurton. So he is just a monster. He is personally victimized. Raise your hands if you've been personally victimized by Chester Gurton. We know the Yankees, too. Their closer is Mason Miller. Their shortstop is Ethan Holiday. And you can see Ethan Holiday has done well for the Yankees generally throughout his career ever since we traded him, so that's kind of a bummer for us. Ciotti is their ace, and he is a great pitcher at only 25 years of age and already so accomplished with a Cy Young Award under his belt. Maybe another one this year, who knows? In the middle of the lineup, they added power this offseason. They spent big in free agency. They got Cuvée from us, who had a perfectly fine year, and they got James Wood, who had a monster year. So they just added a lot of power, and that's why they're here in this ALCS. The Pirates are here. They won 100 games, and they won 100 games specifically because their starting rotation is just so good. But let's talk about their hitting. They have Dave Sochi leading off, former Oakland A's great. He had a very good year this year, and yet I feel like Brendan Tyndall, better year? Question mark. Ben Ryan, also a former Oakland A, is currently playing second base for them. We traded him to the Pirates back in the day as well. That was in 2031, so you're welcome for that. Sequeiros is their ace. This guy's been one of the best pitchers throughout this save. Still only 28 years old, very accomplished, 4-time All-Star. Brad Schock had a very good season for them, also 26 years old. And then Sam Casterline, 27 years old. So the rotation is definitely the strongest part of the Pirates game. And those Pirates will take on the 93-win Arizona Diamondbacks, who, may I mention, had absolutely no trouble in the NL West. No competition there. 73-win Dodgers finished second place, so this was a very weak division, and this was clearly the best team all along. They are led by their third baseman, Frank Arellano, who we've seen become a star in this. It's the combination of the gap power and the speed in the ballpark. He's just a doubles and triples machine. This year, he hit 60 doubles. Last year, he had 55 doubles and 15 triples. That's kind of his deal. Maybe 10 or so home runs, but he still gets to slug a lot just because he has so many extra base hits. Also, great defense at third base as well, a multiple Gold Glove winner. Their catcher, Tony Brown, is also a star for them. Just a great all-around catcher. And honestly, with Jared Forrest, man, I really wish we could get our hands on a better catcher this offseason. The question is, will I even have an offseason to look forward to? I may just get fired at the end of this year. Who knows? Diamondbacks grabbed the first 2 games against the Pirates. I think the Pirates are a little bit fraudulent with those 100 wins. I hate to say it. I think the Diamondbacks roster looks better, and I think the teams in the American League look better as well. We'll just have to see. 3-1 lead for the Diamondbacks, now 2-1 for the Angels as we're sort of simming day by day here. Diamondbacks do advance to the World Series. Who will they take on? Will it be the Yankees? Angels have something to say about that. They force a Game 6. And we'll move back over after a trial day, and they'll force a Game 7. Angels, can they come back from down 3-1 against the Yankees? Yes, they can. It'll be an Angels-Diamondbacks World Series. Let's get simming through it. I'm sorry, the simulation is moving a little bit slow now, and the Diamondbacks will take Game 1. They'll take Game 2. Oh, boy. Come on, Angels. Make our division look good. They will take Game 3, and they will tie it up. So 2 apiece here. Oh, and the Diamondbacks, oh, boy, they're up 3-2. Oh, and there's going to be a Game 7 of the World Series. Who wins? Your 2035 World Series champions are the Los Angeles Angels. Your World Series MVP is Drew Gilbert, which is very interesting because he was terrible in the regular season, but I guess he turned it on when it mattered. I'm seeing Hurston Waldrep and Christian Montes de Oca winning games in this World Series, so there were some very tight games. I mean, we've got 3-2, 3-2, 5-2, 3-2 right here at the end. That was Game 7. Let's see how it went down. Yep, a walk-off for the Angels in the 12th. Unbelievable. And now the question is very simple. Having not really achieved any of my goals going into a contract year, do I still have a job going into 2036? Let's begin the offseason. The season is over. Your season score this year is 365. That is not a very good score, Foolish. You can do better. However, the news is we're going to get a chance to do better. John Fisher has given us an extension for 1 more year.